this week's recording almost didn't happen. For the first time in a few months, I was blessed to be able to speak live to an audience, and my mic died after about a minute into the live recording. So you're getting a bit of a replay here, but this is us following through on the plan to act. The Best Laid Plans of Mice and Men. Something I've never read, but I understand it has something to do with planning. And perhaps how man tracht and Gott lacht. Shtickle Yiddish about man planning and God laughing. That's a good one. Our plans don't always go according to plan. Life doesn't always go according to plan. But at some point, you have to shift from planning to building. If you've been building lately with AI, you know the power of plan mode helps direct your bots. Your context becomes more clear. But there's clearly a need to shift at some point from planning to building and doing and acting. You need to shift from this idea to the Maisa itself. The Avoida begins. And Parshat Vayakhel-Pekudei, the Parsha of assembling and reckoning, or the double Parsha, is specifically about that shift. After 4 weeks or 5 weeks of talking about the requirements of the Mishkan, what we need to build, how it needs to look, what are the materials, all those kinds of things, we shift print into action. And this shift is kind of perfectly timed for right now. We just came out of Purim. Purim is a period where we focus on being. We focus on being happy. Perhaps we don't even really need to worry too much about who we are. We cover ourselves up. The miracles that happened were miracles that were hidden. We don't see God in the Megillah at all. And we shift to a new period. We shift towards planning for Pesach, preparing for Pesach. We start to clean our houses. Maybe we're buying matzahs. Hazoi, all good things. But we see this shift because Pesach is about the overt actions. The initiation of that was taking a sheep. We took the Egyptians' god. We had to do some bold actions in order to start that off, to start our own Geula, our own salvation. And that's perhaps why this Parsha fits in exactly where it does. It's also coincides, this reading coincides with the ending of the book. So we have a Chazak, V'nit Chazek. We celebrate the fact that we are completing something and moving on to a new period. We read a special maftir this week, which is maftir Chodesh, Birkat Chodesh. We start a new month. It's also the reading that tells us about the preparation for Pesach. It tells us about the Pesach of the future. It tells us about the halachot of Pesach. So there's clearly a time of transition that we're going through here. And if we look at the Parsha itself, I think it gives us a whole bunch of guidance about how this works. It starts off with a short reading about Shabbat, again reminding us about what is important in this life. This is ultimately this recognition of where we come from, this connection with God, that even with all the best work, the best intentions of work, we still ultimately do this to rest on the seventh day, and that in the future there will be a period of great rest to come. And then it goes into the building itself, the Oseh. Last week we called Betzalel by name, and here we help bring his vision to life. Re'u Kara. We see the way that this is the way he builds things. We talk about the way that the collective donated, so all the people came together. Kol people, they give their donations, and we see here there's a story that they gave so many donations that even the Nisim, who said, yeah, we'll wait till later, they pushed off their donating. They had such a surplus that there wasn't even a need for their donations at the end. So there's a lot we can learn about how to move into action from this week's Parsha. Set your vision, do a lot of planning ahead of time. It's quite clear that, we spend 4 weeks planning and now 1 week doing the building. There's a lot of effort that should be setting a clear goal, a clear plan. But once you have that vision in mind, you activate it through Etzalel. This understanding that you are the shadow or the image of God, and that allows you to flow. Accept that you have something inside of you that you can contribute, that you are in some way area of God to go and do his bidding. Understand that motivation can come from a collective experience. Last week, they gave collectively to the Egel Azav, the golden calf. This week, thankfully, they're giving to a much better cause. They're giving to building the Mishkan. And as we learned a number of weeks ago, the Mishkan is actually an internal dwelling as well. So we see this idea of collective buy-in, collective alignment that helps drive everybody to do donations in surplus. And maybe a bit more hidden message, but also there as well, is understand that perhaps we can rely on each other. A wise-hearted artisan can come and do the right work, but we can rely on them if they have the expertise, if they believe that they can, if we can trust them to do it. Then eventually, once we've done all those actions, then we'll see as it ends the end of Parshat Pekudei, Hashem's presence will rest in the Mishkan. God's presence, the goal of all of this, that God rests amongst us, will be realized. So we're shifting from a period of planning and thinking to doing. And the Parsha gives us one very clear guidance about how to do this. Live. That's how it describes Betzalel. That's how it describes the people who donate. It's how it describes all of the work that goes into building the Mishkan. Chacham Lev. Face value, you would sort of expect that Chacham and Lev are two separate things. I have my thoughts and I have my feelings. They're disparate. Ironically, that thoughts and feelings is the impetus for these musings to begin with. But this idea that thoughts and feelings are integrated is really what helps us bring that alignment that brings Hashem into our own personal Mishkans. And it's what helps guide us into doing meaningful work, doing work that is fulfilling. Accepting that Betzalel, by understanding that he was a shadow in the shadow of God and in the image of God, found his internal calling, found his strengths, his abilities that perhaps he would not otherwise found. By adopting that mindset of trust, he was able to do a fulfillment of purpose in a way. Now, when you think about heart and mind, action and thought, feelings, etc., it's clear that a lot of anxiety comes when somebody's thoughts are not in alignment with their actions. Somebody has a vision for what the world could look like, but does not see that the world pans out in that way. They're not able to act in alignment with what they think the world should look like. And this idea that we find alignment between our thoughts and our feelings is really what helps us act in the best way possible. The line attributed to the Baal Shem Tov, the longest journey is from the head to the heart. We know the challenge to find alignment between these two things. Meditative standpoint, we have the crown chakra, which is what ultimately connects us with the divine above. The heart chakra, which is what guides our action, is sort of the middle chakra in the body. And these, the sphirot, from a Kabbalistic standpoint, is what connects us to our vision. And the lev is what guides us to act. But ultimately, we have to act. So, things that we can do in this time, as we're preparing for Pesach, increments, small moments. We don't necessarily understand the full plan right now, and unlike the Mishkan, perhaps we don't have it as clearly defined as we would like. But through iteration and small increments, we can define the next step in our plan. You have to make a decision. You can look inside and see if it feels like this is the right thing. And when the decision is fraught with all kinds of peril, perhaps potential to fail or too big to wrap your head around, shrink it. Find something smaller. What's the next step that feels like it's okay or right to do? What's the next step that feels like it's aligned with whatever the big vision is, but also feels right to take as just one more step? So At this time of transition, as we shift to perhaps a new normal, continuation of a war, facing challenges in Chutz La'aretz, a number of shuls being attacked in the past week, we invite Hashem to come join us in the Mishkan. And we do that by aligning our mind with the future vision, the big vision for the future, understanding that perhaps we don't have a clear view of the whole picture just yet. And we try and take the alignment to take one action, one step for the future. If you're cleaning for Pesach, clean one room. If you've got other things going on, find the small thing that will make that one step meaningful and feels aligned. Because the more that we cultivate that alignment between our heart and our mind, the more that we will reach a stage of Chacham Lev, of internal wisdom that guides aligned action and invites God to be amongst us. Azoy, good Shabbos. If that inspired you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Like, comment, subscribe.